question, that was, I feel attacked when you said it. I guess with all of our panelists and attendees as well, but that's really, something that we need longer than this to think about. The next question is, how can I make my gap year meaningful if I just graduated from high school and plan to apply this fall?
I can take this one. I think I would start with SMART goals, right? Understand your time management. You have to know what your essays are like, right? How much time actually do you have, right? The reality is, if it's July and middle of July and you haven't quote unquote started your gap year yet, and your applications are due in January, you have a pretty discrete period of time. You want to figure out, like, what can I actually realistically do in the next couple of months? And the way you want to answer that question is, what would make me feel excited, right? I have 2 months, I have 3 months. What would make me feel excited? Is it learning a technique? Is it learning something? Is it reading a bunch of books, right? You have to define for yourself what meaningful feels like or looks like. You're not going to learn an entirely new language from scratch. So you do need to be a little bit realistic about what are your other time commitments. I don't know what your other time commitments are, so I can't really tell you like the scale of thing that you can consider. And there are also things that are incremental. If you want to start something that you're not going to be able to finish until next year after your applications are done, that's fine. Just make sure you have some benchmarks that you can hit between, right? If you're starting a new organization, right, that you build a team before your application is, or get enough participants, or set an event that actually is going to be scheduled, as an example. Benchmarks that are incremental will really help give you a sense of progress. And maybe that can be what you think of as meaningful. The question of what is meaningful is a highly subjective question. And so it really depends on what you value that will determine whether or not it is meaningful. And that requires kind of knowing what's important to you.
Thank you. Well, we have this very interesting question. I think Quynh Giang will want to answer this. If I want to spend most of the time traveling, learning how to dance, or self-learning, reading books, online courses, would that weaken my application because the school could not get any measurable achievement and prove that I planned my gap year as well? Giang said, never mind, leave it to Luke. Luke, can you answer this question?
Sure. So the question is, the answer is no. That won't weaken your application at all. You need to know for yourself what growth looks like, right? And and how bold it is, right? I mean, because remember that a gap year is an opportunity, right? And so you don't necessarily just want to stay at home and do what you would do kind of anyway. You want to take advantage of the opportunity because this is such a unique time. It is really, really such a unique time. You might never have another year like this in between high school and college where the time is yours, right? Obviously it's coronavirus and there's huge limitations. So that's definitely meaningful. So, colleges know that there are certain restrictions around this time, but in your activities list, you might say, I learned how to dance, or in your additional information session, or there's actually an essay, a gap year essay that says what did you do with your time if you didn't go directly to college? And you can say, I did this, so there are ways to make things measurable, right? I read 15 books, or I traveled to 4 different provinces on my bike. It is entirely a function of storytelling, and telling what story, the story being how is that valuable to you? How did you grow? And that's basically the entire college application, right? If we're going to talk about what a college application is at its most fundamental, it's how did I grow? And pick any metric, intellectually, academically, personally, artistically, from a community perspective. That's your college application, is how did I grow? And so you can take the opportunity to talk about how I grew in my gap year because I took 5 dance classes a week, or I traveled to 10 cities or whatever it happens to be. You can't necessarily know what the result of that growth will be because it hasn't happened yet, but you can definitely set some objectives in motion.
Yeah, I kind of want to add on to that because exactly like Luke said, you don't know, especially for learning, you don't know how to show it until the time comes. Because for me, one of the things that I'm really proud of during my gap year is just I finished this one book. It's called Poor Economics. And what happened is that like 5 months later, after I read this book, I just have a talk with this guy from an NGO. He's like running an NGO, building schools in the mountainous areas. And I talked to him and, you know, I connect the thoughts I had when I was reading the book to the projects that he was doing. And I managed to show that in my Wesley and Freeman essay. And I think what I really showed was that how I could apply the things that I have read and learned, not even in school, in my real life, in my conversations with others, and how I've grown through that. And I think that's definitely
I remember that.
not like, yeah, so I could not see that happening in 5 months before when I first finished that book, but I put that in an essay that I'm very proud of. And that's definitely something that the college will see in you through one way or another. So I think, do anything that you grow.
Totally. I mean, and Huyen was the same way. I mean, there were aspects of her experience in Costa Rica that, and Huyen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that you could not have anticipated, but that ended up having kind of an impact on you. Would you say that's true?
Yes.
I was thinking of specific essays about the young child and horseback riding.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, that was the draft. I ended up not like submitting that, but yeah.
Cool.
Great. Well, guys, we do have we're running out of time, but we're gonna take on 3 last questions. So this one is, I have a lot of ideas to do in my gap year, but some of them are out of league or financially difficult. So I want to ask how to organize and prioritize things in my gap year.
Yeah. Bing, do you have any questions about this? Because I think I remember we talked a lot about constraints, and we went through a lot of different iterations of what you might do, and you had some similar considerations. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so I had like big plans at first. I was thinking of like touring whole Vietnam and like working with different organizations, doing debate. And then I think, I could have done that. I think what I eventually did was more of thinking about how I can grow as like a student and as a person in general. And I wanted at that point, like just staying in a place for a fixed amount of time. That is why I chose to live in Singapore for like a month. And I think for big plans, what you should do, I think, is just like plan it out. And whatever goal that is, break it down to smaller goals. But I think the most important thing is not to, you don't have to actually do everything that you set out to do, but more like, what are you going to learn from those experiences that you are setting? So then you have a goal of experience, of ideas. And then if you cannot do those big ideas that require like huge amount of resources, then you can at least have a direction of where to go to figure out like that particular ideas.
You also leveraged very specific skills that you have. I mean, to address part of the financial issue. I mean, you tutored debate, and you taught classes. You earned you earned money. And similarly with me is I worked in a pizza shop for part of my gap year. And then I worked for a nonprofit organization. So like, think about the idea of the financial difficulty also poses an opportunity, because the solution to that itself can also be valuable. Now Bing has teaching experience, right? And he had to do curriculum and work with young students and learn how to communicate his experiences and skills that he had worked very hard to cultivate over the course. And that has led to additional things. Like since then, he has done more debate coaching. So think about the financial obstacles as an opportunity, the solution to which can it itself teach you things.
Great. Well, the next question is for Huyen. Do you think that your gap year with lots of volunteering experience shaped your decision to major in STEM?
The answer is yes, definitely. I think the moment that I decided that I really want to go into STEM was when I was volunteering in Malaysia, teaching English to these kids in rural area, and they did not really have like access to technologies like we do. Like we have like Quizlet and like all this like smartphones and like technologies to, you know, like have access to education and stuff. And they did not have that. So that's why I decided to go into STEM and computer science. My ultimate goal is to like integrate technology into education to make equality in education accessible to like everyone. And even beyond that, like volunteering experience also provides me with a lot of like, you know, like empathy and sympathy and like the soft skills, leadership skills, teamwork skills that are very beneficial in the long run. So even like after your gap year, when you're like in college, these skills are like very necessary and beneficial for you. And even now, when I'm doing my internship, or like even when I apply for my internship, these skills, like they look, companies look into the soft skills that you have to like hire you and things. And when you get into the company, you will like use the skills to work with people and things like that. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Well, the last question of today we have is, I went to a public high school and SAT2 is canceled. So is there anything I can do to strengthen my academic side? Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different ways that you can potentially strengthen your academic side. I mean, it really depends on what it is you're looking to focus on, what it is that you're looking to learn. I would encourage you to figure out what you would be most excited about learning, and not just taking like more of what you already needed to study in high school. Like, what haven't you had the opportunity yet to try, right? Like, do you want to learn about psychology or anatomy or the stock market or whatever it happens to be? There are so many really good classes online. Coursera is largely free. edX is largely free. Udemy is largely free. Those are great places to start because they're curricula that are already kind of developed for you. There is nothing at this point, if you're looking, there's no alternative to the SAT subject test, but that's kind of okay because we got rid of them because they kind of suck anyway. And there's no AP test. So you don't think about it from that, like, what is another test that I can take? Think about it in terms of like, what additional material can I learn? And again, books, lectures, online courses, seminars, right? But it will feel a little bit overwhelming if you don't already have an idea of what it is that you want to learn. So first, get very, very, very specific about what you want to learn, and then you can use some online resources. Is potentially a good place to get started.
Thank you. Well, that concludes our webinar today. Thank you all for joining us. If you have further questions to our panelists or Luke or me, feel free to reach out to me at zoe@sparkrad.com. I have the, yes, Chang just sent a link for a consultation. or Luke did that, you guys can fill out that schedule, fill out that form, and sign up for a consultation with either me or Luke. And hopefully we'll see you in our next webinar soon. Bye.
Thanks again, panelists. Thanks so much for joining us. Nice to see all your faces.
Thank you, Giang. Thank you, Bing. Thank you, Huyen. Thank you, Luke. I know what time is it on your time?
9:30.
9:30. Oh, okay. That's decent.
Not so bad. Not so bad.
All
All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. Good night.
Bye.
Okay.